again, this is Miss Israel coming at you from Einstein High School. We are still in Unit 1, Topic 1, and we're going to complete problem number 7. Sherry solved the equation 1/5 of x minus 20 equals 45. For each step, write the name of the property that Sherry used. Now you'll notice I gave myself some space here because what are those properties? Let's go ahead and write those down. There are a few properties that we use to solve equations that we've learned this year. The first is the addition property of equality. And it is joined by its opposite, the subtraction property of equality. And all that property of equality means is, remember when we solve an equation, that golden rule of algebra tells us that what I do to one side, I must do to the other side. So if I add a number to each side of the equation, I have to make sure it's the same number and that I'm adding it to both sides. Our other pair that we're going to have is our multiplication. Property of equality. And that's joined by its pair, its friend, the division property. And finally, well, there are other properties. The last one we're really going to look at today is the division property. Notice I didn't say, the distributive property. Notice I didn't say property of equality. This is because the distributive property happens on one side of the equation. I distribute a number and I don't have to distribute that number to the other side. I'm only going to distribute it to the numbers in the parentheses, and we'll take a look at that here in a minute. Okay, so let's look at this equation again. Sherry solved the equation 1/5 of the quantity x minus 20, and we know that it's equal to 45. So let's go ahead down to our boxes here and continue with this problem. So we need to look and see, the work has been done for us. We have to look and see very carefully what property of equality did Sherry use in order to complete the step. All right, so here we started with our original equation, and notice that the property used, we just labeled that original equation. Okay, I hope we can see that what we're going to have to do is use that distributive property and multiply both terms in the parentheses times 1/5. And you can see in the next box that sure enough, here we have 1/5 times x and 1/5 times 20, which simplifies to 1/5 of x minus 4 equals 45. Where did that 4 come from? Well, 20 times 1/5, or 20 divided by 5, is going to give us 4. So the property we used here was the distributive property. And notice we only had to do it on one side of our equation, and that's again why we don't have to call that a property of equality. All right, moving down, let's look and see what Sherry did next. We have 1/5 of x minus 4 equals 45, and I see that Sherry has performed a bit of addition by adding 4 to both sides, and because she's adding, we're going to say that Sherry used the addition property of equality. Why equality? Well, because she did it to both sides of our equation. And she left us with 1/5 of x is equal to 49. And the final thing that I hope we see here that Sherry did is she multiplied both sides of our equation times 5. I'm going to rewrite this up here. We can also say this is 1x over 5 equals 49, and that's how Sherry got away with just multiplying both sides of that equation times 5. And because of that, Sherry's using the multiplication property of equality. And that's going to wrap up question number 7 for us today.